Good day everyone! Today I'm going to discuss the types of communication which is under the week 1 of the Media and Information Literacy module. We will start with page 5 of the module, so make sure that you are holding your modules with you while watching this video. Now we will begin our discussion in page 5 as I've told you. So we will start with the definition of communication. In this module, it is defined as the act or process of using words, sounds, signs, or behaviors to express your thoughts, ideas, and feelings, among others, to someone else. It is the exchange of information and the expression of feeling that can result in understanding. In other words, communication refers to the process of transmitting messages or ideas from one person or a group of persons to another. It may be face-to-face conversation between two people or large of people called audience using various media. So what's important here is that the definition of communication is actually the act of exchanging ideas or words in order to express yourself and to be understood by the person you're communicating with. Now, there are some types of communication which is also important to know. So the first one is the verbal communication. So verbal communication refers to the form of communication in which a message is transmitted verbally. The communication is done by word of mouth or a piece of writing. Spoken words which are used include face-to-face conversations, speech, telephone conversation, video, radio, television, voice-over, internet. Likewise, handwritten symbols are used to communicate. A written message may be printed or handwritten, can be transmitted via email, letter, report, memo, and etc. So in here, it is very important for you to know that when you say verbal communication, it doesn't only mean that it is coming from the spoken words. Piece of writing, which also uses words, are also form of verbal communication. So as long as you are using communicative words, either verbally or through writing, that is still a form of verbal communication. It's because, let's move on to number 2. When you say non-verbal communication, it is the sending or receiving of wordless messages. Again, you take note of the word wordless. The communication is done by gestures, body language, posture, tone of voice, or facial expression. So it's all about the body language of the speaker. You notice in non-verbal communication, there are some cases kasi that people misinterchangeably handwritten or written communication as non-verbal communication, which is not. It's because when you say non-verbal communication, it is only, or remember the word wordless messages. So you're not using any words either through speaking or through writing. So you're only just using gestures or body language, even the tone of our voice, our facial expression. It could be also part of the non-verbal communication. So let's proceed to communication according to purpose and style. So we have 2 here. Number 1 is formal communication. So it takes place in professional settings. This type of communication is practiced in corporate meetings, conferences, academic seminars, political sessions, and judicial proceedings. So you take note of the word professional setting. So this is in corporate meetings, seminars, or conferences that you are attending. We call that formal communication. But when you say informal communication, it is most commonly used form of communication. Bakit siya commonly used form of communication? It's because it takes place in daily interaction with classmates, and anyone who wishes to speak with another. So this one, when you communicate with your friends, with your family, that is considered as informal communication, wherein there are no set of rules or guided rules set by the organization in order for you to speak, unlike in formal communication. Okay, so process questions here. You'll be answering this in your module. What is communication? Why do you communicate? And how do you communicate? So for why do you communicate, you state the purpose of communication. Why is it important for you to communicate? And then with how do you communicate, you have to tell us the different ways on how you communicate with other people. It may be either through chat, through verbal or non-verbal interaction, and so on. So it's up to you. Next, we have the process of communication. So for this one, we actually have different elements here. So we have 7, which we will discuss one by one. So the process of communication refers to the different elements which is needed in order for us to complete the communication process. So without any of the following, there is no communication. So let's have number 1. Number 1 is the sender. The sender or the speaker is also known as a source of origin of information or message. So he is the one in charge of the encoding process of the communication. He is the one who conveys the message. The goal of the sender is to ensure that his or her intended message is the message that is communicated. In other words, ang sender is the person who is speaking, who is the origin of the information. Next is we have the message. It pertains to any information, ideas, and feelings that are passed on through communication. So this is whatever the sender or the speaker communicates to the receiver, or the information received by the receiver from the sender. Next one, we have channel. So channel refers to the medium or means on how message is transmitted or being transmitted. So it can be, let's say, our 5 senses. It can be through eye-to-eye contact. So if you tried looking at somebody with a certain meaning or message, then that is a channel. It could also be, let's say, we have television, radio, records, newspaper, and magazines. These are also examples of media channels. Next one is the receiver. So receiver is also known as the listener. He is in charge of decoding the process of communication, and he who listens. So this one, this is the person whom is the target of the information, or the target of the sender. Next one is noise. Noise is actually considered to be a barrier of communication. So when you say barrier, they are the ones, these are some elements which interferes the communication. So noise. It could be internal or external noise. So kapag sinabi natin external noise, these are the physical noises such as maingay na kapitbahay, maingay na sound ng radio or sound ng TV, and so on. But when you say internal noise, it is something that is felt either by the sender or the receiver emotionally. Let's say, noise na nagugutom siya. So, the noise there is produced by the stomach somehow, or problemado siya. So, those are internal noises. Next is the situation or setting. In some other books, we call this context. So, setting or situation is the time and place in which communication occurs. So, communication adapts to the setting. Again, in some other books, we call this the context. Next, we have feedback. So, among the 6 elements, actually, this is considered to be the most important one, because if there is no feedback, then there is no successful communication. So, feedback It is the receiver's message that he sends to the source in response to the sender's message. So again, we call this the most important element in communication. There was one time in my class before when I have asked my students, example, through chat, kunyari sinin ka, sinasin yung chat mo pero hindi siya nag-reply. The question is there a successful feedback in there? The answer is actually yes, because it was seen. It's either the receiver doesn't want to answer you, the receiver is not interested in you, or the receiver isn't interested in the message or the person who sent the message. So still, that is the feedback, negative feedback. Okay, let's move on to the different models of communication. Okay, you might be asking, bakit ang dami-daming models of communication? Actually, these are just the same in many ways, but the only difference here is the focus. What is the focus of the following communication model? So let us start with number 1, the Laswell's communication model. So this model describes who is saying something, which channel is used to convey the messages, who the message is aimed at, and what effect the message has. It describes verbal communication and consists of 5 elements: who says what, in which channel, to whom, with what effect. So this model is also called a linear model of communication or unidirectional process because it describes a one-way process within a communication. So you notice, one-way lang talaga siya. Okay, so we have here the sender, we have the message, we have the channel or the medium, kung ano yung ginamit ni sender. We have here the receiver and the effect. Okay, so what is the effect of the message to the receiver? So it's just a one-way process. You notice, wala siyang feedback. Okay, so this is the Laswell communication. Actually, the purpose of this communication model is only to describe the different elements in the communication process. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2, we have the Shannon and Weaver model of communication. So this has been called the mother of all models. Bakit kaya? This model was designed to develop effective communication between the sender and the receiver. Also, a factor affecting the communication process is called noise. It deals with the various concepts which information source for the sender, transmitter, noise, channel, receiver, message, channel, information destination, encode and decode. So let us study the model. So we have here the sender. Okay, the sender encodes the message being sent. Channel refers to the different way in which the message was transmitted, pwedeng phone, chat, writing, or whatever. So we have here noise. So sa noise naman, dito yung ano yung struggle, ano yung problema when it was sent through this channel. Example, kung sinend call via call, so for example, pwedeng reception, yung signal reception, it could be the noise. Okay? Kapag verbal naman, kausap, it could be the surrounding around, kung maingay ba or hindi. Okay? So, yun yung noise. And then, decoder, ito yung receiver. The receiver is the one who decodes the message. Pag sinabing decode, parang, aside from receiving, in-analyze, in-evaluate, inintindi ni receiver, and then here we have the feedback. The feedback, is directed to the sender. So, kaya, this model actually is very perfect. One of the most perfect communication model kasi meron siyang feedback. Again, dito sa una, wala siyang feedback kasi nga, unidirectional siya or one-way process. Okay? So, this one, meron siyang feedback. Okay, next is we have the Osgood and Strom model of communication. So this model is circular experience rather than a linear experience that involves the sender who encodes the message and the recipient who decodes it. The sender and the receiver hold both roles in the model. So let us try to interpret the model. So we have here encoder. Ang encoder, remember, it's always the receiver. Okay? We have the message, okay, which is thrown to the decoder. Ang decoder is always the receiver. So if you're going to notice, in-interpret ni receiver, okay, tapos after that, nag-encode siya. The feedback was encoded, ito yung message, and it was decoded by the receiver. So parang the reason why it is circular kasi bumalik lang siya. Okay? Yan. So parehas sila ng role. Yung receiver at yung sender, they have the same role. They both encode and decode. They both interpret. Okay? That is why it's called circular experience. Okay? So hindi siya linear, just like this one. Okay? Ang pinagkaiba naman nito dito sa Shannon is that in here, the only role of the sender is only to encode, and the role of the receiver is only to decode. Unlike in this model, they both have the same role in the communication process. Okay. Next, let's go to the fourth model. So we have the Wesley and McLean model of communication. This model can be applied in two contexts, interpersonal and mass communication. The point of difference being the feedback. So feedback is direct and fast in interpersonal communication and indirect and slow in mass communication. This model also differentiates the message as purposive and unpurposive. So let us study this one. So kapag ang message, the reason why, sabi niya dito, it can be applied in two contexts such as interpersonal and mass communication. The only difference here is that kapag ang communication, form of communication ay nangyari lang sa, let's say, dalawang taong involved or tatlo, okay? You notice, mabilis yung balik ng feedback. Mabilis lang siya. That is through interpersonal. Pero kapag nagkaroon ka ng audience, okay, let's say you are speaking in a crowd, okay, natatagalan yung balik ng feedback. Okay? So, yun lang yung difference dito. So, the difference is kanino ka nakikipag-usap at ano yung setting ng communication. If it's in a large group of people, medyo matatagalan kang makuha yung feedback which was from the message that was sent by the speaker. Okay, next, let's move on to the Burdus SMCR model of communication. This model focuses on decoding and encoding, which happens before the sender sends the message and before the receiver receives the message respectively. Likewise, it has mainly four components to describe the communication process. They are the sender, message, channel, and receiver. Each of the component is affected by many factors. So let us try to study source. So yung source, it refers to the sender. Okay? The sender who encodes the message, in which the message was sent through different channels or medium. Okay? The message is being decoded by the receiver. So let us see the source. So yung source natin, okay, makikita natin dito yung communication skill, attitude ng speaker, yung knowledge niya about the message, the social system, and the culture. So ano yung culture na pinanggalingan or practice ng receiver natin, ng sender. Doon sa message, okay, makikita rin natin yung content, yung element, yung treatment, yung structure or yung code. So, makikita natin gaano kahirap yung sinesend na message. Okay? Structural ba siya? Meron pa ba siyang mga code? And so on. So, sa channel naman, okay, we have hearing, seeing. These are the 5 differences. Okay? So more or less, it was sent verbally, okay? Pwede rin non-verbal. Okay? These are the factors affecting, okay? Or the factors included in this element. Okay? And then the message which was decoded by the receiver. So may kita natin pares din, may communication skill, attitude, knowledge. Bakit kaya siya ganito? It's because sometimes, let's say sender number 1 came from a different culture, although the message, okay, sent by this person, okay, through this channel can be understood, okay, by the person who also came from the same culture. E paano if the receiver has a different culture? So dito nagkakatalo, pwedeng the interpretation might be different since both the sender and the receiver came from two different cultures. Okay, so let's have now the different process questions. What is communication process? What are the important elements of communication? How do we achieve an effective communication with other people? What are the different models implied about communication? And how is communication effective? So in here, yan, ito yung mga sasagutan ninyo sa module nyo. Okay, so sad, wala itong answer key. Okay, so yan, andito lang naman yung mga sagot. Okay, for this one, the next topic is actually these are the different terms in MIL. I already uploaded a video of this. You may check this out on my YouTube channel. Ang title niya is Introduction to Media and Information Literacy. So, meron akong na-upload na video about this which will help you in answering this Venn diagram. Kasi dito sa Venn diagram, isusulat niyo yung differences between and among media literacy, information literacy, and technology literacy. So, yung differences, sulat niyo dito sa outer part dito. And then, yung similarities dito. Okay? Yung mga yan. Okay? So, please watch yung naunang vlog na nilagay ko. Okay, so these are just review yung natutunan ninyo. Okay? So, we have the same activity. You'll be answering the following. You can answer in your module. Okay? And then, followed by the assessment. Okay? So, again, ito naman yung may key answer, but don't dare look at the answer key na lang for you to learn. Okay? So, this is all for week 1 of the Media and Information Literacy module. That's it for today. I hope that you have learned something from me in this video. For more videos of Media and Information Literacy lessons, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Bye!